Justin Fields dislocated his thumb, popped it back in place. They won't know more until tomorrow about his status going forward as the Bears get the Raiders next week.
What would you do if your thumb became dislocated? Do you think you'd just put it back in place?
Am I alone?
No, your wife, sir.
She would do it for me. What would you do?
I don't know. Never had anything like that. Sounds awful.
I would pass out.
Yeah.
We had an incident in the house the other day with some blood.
Yeah.
And I almost passed out. I am so bad with that stuff. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I cut my thumb right here.
Yeah.
I had to get one stitch. But I almost passed out from the blood. And then I gave blood in high school, and I basically did pass out. I needed smelling salts. So everything you thought about me in those type of situations, it's even worse, people. It's even worse. Trevor Lawrence, meanwhile, hurt his knee late in the game, and I believe they play on Thursday, right?
Yes, he did walk out onto the field to shake hands. So I don't know that it's serious, but he definitely tweaked something on the last sack, which looked pretty silly too.
I'm feeling he should not have been in the game. But anyway, he did not guarantee that he'd play on Thursday. He's kind of said like a we'll see thing. Ryan Tannehill was on crutches after the game. They have a bye. Jimmy Garoppolo left in the second quarter. Brian Hoyer took over for him. You'd have to think Hoyer would get the start against Chicago if it comes to that in week 7 and not Aiden O'Connell. Christian McCaffrey. Oh, probably shouldn't have waited 13 minutes to talk about the best player in Christian McCaffrey leaving with an oblique injury in the third quarter at Minnesota, then Cincinnati, then a bye. What are your thoughts?
If it wasn't for the fact that I try to avoid injuries on winners and losers, I would have put Jordan Mason amongst the winners because it did seem like he was ahead of Elijah Mitchell today. And Mitchell's 2 carries went for -3 yards, I believe, and Mason scored a touchdown. So if this is going to be a long-term injury for Mason, he should definitely be added across the board. And I would expect him to be the best, but it will be a committee.
I think he has 1 catch in his career also, so keep that in mind, Jordan Mason. So McCaffrey, I think the good news is, if you didn't see it, he basically ran into the locker room. He hurt his oblique, came back in for, I think, 1 play, then he left, then he ran into the locker room. So I don't know if that's any indication of severity, but it wasn't like he was, doubled over in pain or anything like that. David Montgomery left with injured ribs in the second quarter, and
but X-rays were negative.
X-rays were negative, right? They get Baltimore next week. Craig Reynolds took over for him. Kyron Williams left in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. Sean McVay thinks he's okay. It was just a tweak. Ramondre Stevenson left, and he came back. Deebo Samuel, it's a terrible day for the 49ers. They lose to the Browns with a backup quarterback on a bad day for their rookie kicker. Deebo Samuel left and Christian McCaffrey left, and Deebo left in the first quarter and did not return. They're at Minnesota next week. DK Metcalf left, and Jake Bobo left with a concussion, or he was checked for one. They both came back. Actually, I don't know if there was anything on this, but Drake London did leave with less than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm assuming he came back or he's fine. So I think we can ignore it. Hopefully the same with Garrett Wilson, who limped off the field late. Jets beat the Eagles. Browns beat the 49ers. Starting to feel it for Big Blue tonight, Heath.
I did want to make a note. Robert Saleh said that Garrett Wilson should be fine.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see. I heard Jonnu Smith caught his first touchdown in 31 games.
And the broadcast team on that game called him Jonnu Smith.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know, but just add that one to the collection of either or. And
Brandon Ayuk, I kept hearing on the broadcast today. Yeah. Purdy to Ayuk, it was just off today. Purdy was terrible today. That was the worst I've ever seen him. I think the weather originally, it was raining, but then I don't know what his excuse was after that. Some news not from today. Justin Jefferson expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, but according to Adam Schefter, if the team is not in it, there's a chance he could shut it down and not play. Devon Achane expected to only miss 4 weeks. Anthony Richardson could be out for the season. And then there were some defensive injuries, some offensive line injuries. I think I'll just fill you in on those tomorrow, except I will say the Eagles had a particularly rough day. They lost their right tackle, Lane Johnson, early, And then Reed Blankenship, a safety, left with injured ribs, and defensive back Bradley Roby left with an injury, and they were already playing without Darius Slay. So they were a shell of themselves defensively in the secondary. And look who's coming to town on Sunday night, Miami Dolphins in Week 7. Quick look at the waiver wire here. So Jordan Mason, would he be your number one guy? Because you could have Craig Reynolds in the mix too. Who do you think for the waiver wire?
Yeah, assuming that McCaffrey's injury is going to cost him a week, then Jordan Mason would be the top guy. Craig Reynolds, who do they play next week? I'm not particularly excited about him. I don't think they're going to throw it to him a whole lot. It looks like they are at Baltimore next week. I would like, he's going to be someone we add, but it could be an Amari DeMarcado situation.
Oh, what? We're going to do superlatives at the end of the year. Amari DeMarcado is going to be the worst waiver wire pickup of the season.
And the worst part is like that we talked about it a little bit. Early in the week, we said Keontae Ingram's missed 2 games. If he comes back, he might have a big role. And he did. But that wasn't the thing that killed Amari DeMarcado. It's that Damian Williams still exists.
Yeah, I know.
And had almost as many carries as Keontae Ingram.
Yeah.
They gave him like 3 drives.
Other players you could pick up, Rashee Rice, Curtis Samuel. Thank you to Chris for this list. Maybe Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt was pretty even with Jerome Ford. Not quite, but he had a pretty busy day, Kareem Hunt.
One of my winners, I don't know. Did he ever get to, I'm not sure if he ever got to 65%, but Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz is 70%.
70, okay.
Yeah, the only problem with Dalton Schultz, we'll talk about it in a bit. He's gone on a bye this week, and to me, a pretty clear, I don't know if it's causation, but a clear spike in targets basically as soon as Tank Dell got hurt.